Ever wonder why some TikToks hit you harder than others? Why a stranger's 10-second video can feel weirdly familiar? It's not just the algorithm. It's your subconscious, recognizing something deeper. These aren't just videos. They're reflections. Of you. Of all of us. Carl Jung explained it before we even had screens. Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist born in 1875. He wasn't on social media. He didn't care about likes, shares, or algorithms, but he deeply understood people. He saw that the surface of human behavior, what we say, do, and post, hides a much deeper layer, a collective inner world, what he called the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious is like a mental reservoir, a shared memory system every human is born with. It's where our instincts, dreams, myths, and symbols come from. Not taught, inherited. It's the reason ancient civilizations across the world, with no contact, created similar heroes, gods, monsters, and stories. Jung believed that deep inside us live archetypes, universal characters we all carry. They aren't fixed identities, they're patterns, blueprints of human behavior that shape how we act, think, and see others. You already know them. The hero, the one who faces challenges and transforms. The rebel, the one who breaks rules to change the system. The jester, who uses humor to speak truth. The caregiver, who nurtures and heals. The lover, the sage, the outlaw, the innocent. The list goes on. These aren't fantasy roles. They're internal forces. And here's where it gets interesting. They're not stuck in ancient myths or books. They're alive in pop culture, advertising, politics, and yes, on your TikTok For You page. Think about it. Why do certain creators resonate so deeply? Why does one type of video make you feel seen, while another makes you instantly swipe away? It's because we're not just watching content. We're watching symbols, modern expressions of age-old roles. The hustle bro with a mic and a mission, that's the hero, chasing transformation. The meme queen roasting her own life at 3 a.m., that's the jester, masking pain with humor. The crystal healing full moon checklist, self-care TikToker, caregiver. The fashion outlaw who breaks every trend rule and owns it? Rebel. It's not that these creators know Jung, it's that Jung knew them, or rather, he knew the patterns that live inside us all. And those patterns, those archetypes, are why TikTok feels so strangely familiar. Even when the content is brand new, something about it clicks. You feel connected. You feel like you're not alone. Because archetypes don't just describe who we are. They show us what we long for. Jung's theory hits harder today than ever before. In a world where identity is constantly being constructed, posted, and reshaped, we're always stepping into roles. On TikTok, that process happens in hyperdrive. You're not just posting, you're performing. And maybe you're not trying to go viral, but whether you know it or not, your content, and the content you're drawn to, often reflects an archetype you're living through, or resisting. That's not a bad thing. In fact, Jung believed the journey of life was integrating these archetypes, not becoming just one, but finding balance between them. He called it individuation, the process of becoming whole. But here's the danger. When we over-identify with one archetype, when we only show up as the hero, the jester, the rebel, we lose touch with other parts of ourselves. The hero burns out. The jester gets stuck in deflection. The rebel becomes destructive, chasing chaos with no cause. And in the world of social media, where the pressure to brand yourself is constant, this imbalance can be subtle but serious. It's easy to play a role, especially when the algorithm rewards it. It's harder to ask, is this really me? Or am I just echoing what gets applause? Carl Jung warned us about this long before social media existed. He said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And that includes hiding behind personas that feel safe, accepted, or admired. So what's the takeaway? It's this. TikTok isn't just a place for trends and laughs. It's a massive digital reflection of our collective psyche. Every viral sound, every aesthetic wave, every personality type that rises and falls, these aren't just coincidences. They're symbols, echoes from the unconscious, proof that we're still playing out the same archetypal drama, just with better lighting and vertical video. You're not just consuming content, you're decoding a cultural mirror. And if you look closely, you might start to recognize the roles you're playing and the ones you've been avoiding. Jung didn't predict TikTok, but he understood its roots. Because no matter how the platform changes, people don't. Our stories evolve, but the archetypes stay the same. We keep playing them, we keep watching them, and we keep needing them because they remind us we're not alone. So which archetype do you gravitate toward? Who do you follow? And why? The answer might say more than you think. Take a closer look at the most viral creators on TikTok. You'll start to notice a pattern. It's not just what they do, it's who they become. Some step into the spotlight to motivate and lead. Some break rules to challenge the system. Some use humor to diffuse the weight of daily life. Others nurture, heal, or create safe space for others to feel. They're not inventing these roles. They're stepping into something ancient, something wired into all of us. We don't just respond to their content, we respond to their character, the symbolic story they embody. And whether they know it or not, they're channeling archetypes, living out modern versions of timeless roles. The hero, the rebel, the jester, the caregiver. It's all there, hidden in plain sight. Let's break them down. We scroll to be entertained, to laugh, to escape. But beneath every video that makes us stop, something deeper is happening. We're not just watching random creators, we're watching characters. And TikTok, whether by accident or design, has become the biggest stage for modern archetypes. Let's start with the one we all know, the hero. The hero on TikTok isn't wearing armor or slaying dragons, but the struggle is real. They show up in gym vlogs, mental health diaries, small business journeys, and glow-up stories. They're the creators who say, "This is where I was, and this is how far I've come." They share not just success, but effort. Not perfection. Progress. You feel their fight, and more importantly, you feel like you could start your own. Think of people who document their weight loss transformations, or young entrepreneurs posting daily behind-the-scenes videos, packaging orders at 2 a.m., sharing the wins and the breakdowns. Their content isn't just motivational, it's mythological. They embody the classic hero's journey, leaving the comfort zone, facing trials, transforming along the way. And just like ancient stories, we follow because we want to believe the journey is possible. Not just for them, but for us. But not everyone is on a mission to conquer. Some creators aren't climbing mountains, they're laughing at them. Enter the jester. The jester archetype is everywhere on TikTok. They're the meme makers, the satirists, the chaotic neutral energy of the internet. They make you laugh in 3 seconds, then leave you thinking about your entire life 5 minutes later. But don't underestimate the jester. Behind the humor is often a sharp awareness of how absurd life can be, of how broken systems are, of how we're all pretending a little bit. A creator might clown on the horrors of retail work, or make a skit about millennial burnout. And it's funny because it's true. Jung saw the jester not as a fool, but as a truth teller. Someone who could expose reality in a way people would actually listen to. Humor disarms us. It lowers the defenses. And TikTok's jesters know this. They're not just being funny, they're holding up a mirror. Then we have the softer voices. The calm spaces. The ones that feel like exhaling after a long day. That's the caregiver. These creators don't go viral with stunts. They go viral because they make people feel safe. They post reminders to drink water, to rest, to stop punishing yourself for being tired. They teach, they guide, they hold space. Think of the creators who post "you need to hear this" videos, the ones who read affirmations in soft voices, or walk you through breathing exercises during a panic attack. They aren't flashy, they're steady. In a world that moves too fast, they offer a pause. And people respond, not just with likes, but with gratitude. Because even online, we're drawn to the archetype that heals. But healing isn't always quiet. Sometimes healing starts with disruption, with the voice that says, "This isn't right." The one that refuses to be polite about injustice, inequality, or double standards. That's the rebel. The rebel isn't here for feel-good vibes. They're here to shake the system. On TikTok, they're the creators who challenge social norms, who question power, who push back against the algorithm itself. Maybe it's the woman calling out beauty standards with unfiltered videos. Maybe it's the disabled creator demanding accessibility. Maybe it's the non-binary teen rejecting gender roles, unapologetically, loudly. The rebel archetype has always made people uncomfortable. That's the point. In Jung's terms, the rebel is essential to change. They bring the shadow into the light. They break what no longer serves. And because TikTok thrives on confrontation and energy, the rebel often gets amplified. Sometimes celebrated, sometimes hated, but never ignored. What's fascinating is how these archetypes don't exist in isolation. Many creators flow between them. A jester might also be a hero. A caregiver might suddenly post a rebel-style rant, because in reality, none of us are just one thing. But the archetypes help us see. They help us understand why certain personas pull us in or push us away. There's a reason people follow creators they relate to, not just because of their content, but because of their symbolic role. When you follow a hero, maybe you want to believe in your own potential. When you follow a jester, maybe you're craving relief. When you follow a caregiver, maybe you're exhausted. When you follow a rebel, maybe you're angry and ready to speak. These personas connect us to emotions we're often too busy to process. They give us something to root for, or release through, or learn from. And on TikTok, where identity is performance, these roles get intensified. The algorithm doesn't just show you what's trending, it shows you your patterns, your psyche. Over time, your feed becomes your reflection. Carl Jung might have called that the unconscious bubbling to the surface. We just call it "my FYP gets me." But maybe that's not a joke. Maybe that's the truth, hiding in plain sight. The digital world is a projection of the internal one, and viral creators are modern mirrors of the oldest parts of us. So next time you pause on a video, ask yourself, why did this hit? What part of me is responding? Is it the part that wants to fight, to heal, to laugh, to rise? Because those aren't just reactions, they're clues. And they lead to something even deeper. Not just who we follow, but who we're becoming. Every culture has stories of a hero. The one who leaves home, faces trials, transforms, and returns stronger. Changed, but also a symbol of what's possible. In ancient myths, it was Odysseus or Mulan. In modern movies, it's Spider-Man, Katniss Everdeen, Harry Potter. And today, it's the TikToker documenting their recovery. The teen entrepreneur posting daily updates from a garage startup. The mom sharing how she rebuilt her life after everything fell apart. The hero's journey is alive and well, but now it's vertical, raw, unedited, and maybe filmed at 2 a.m. in someone's bedroom. The setting has changed. The archetype hasn't. The hero on TikTok doesn't wear a cape. They don't need to. Their superpower is authenticity. Their story starts in struggle. And that's what makes people care. It might begin with a before video, someone staring into the camera with no makeup, no filters, no background music, just a caption. Day 1 of getting my life together. No sponsors, no followers, just intention. And from there, the journey begins. What Jung called the hero archetype is what we now might call the self-improver, the motivator, or the comeback story. But underneath, it's the same thing. A deep human craving for transformation, and a desire to make that transformation mean something. On TikTok, the hero shows up in many forms. There's the fitness creator tracking every rep, every meal, every setback, not to brag, but to prove it's possible. There's the college dropout rebuilding their life, taking people along as they start a small business from scratch. There's the mental health advocate posting updates from therapy, talking openly about shame, medication, recovery. We follow them not because they're perfect. We follow because they're trying, because they remind us that the journey matters more than the destination. And maybe, just maybe, we could do it too. That's the emotional pull of the hero. It taps into something universal. We all want our pain to have a purpose. We all want to become someone we're proud of. TikTok, in many ways, has become the ultimate storytelling tool for that. It's raw, it's personal, and it's immediate. You don't need a production team or a brand deal to share your story. You just need a phone and the courage to be seen. And when people do choose to be seen, especially in their lowest moments, it creates a powerful kind of connection. It's not just content. It's catharsis. It's community. You'll see it in the comments. You're inspiring me to start. I'm on day 1 too. Crying right now, I needed this. That's not passive engagement. That's identification. It's the audience stepping into the story. Not just watching the hero, but becoming part of the journey. And that's exactly what Carl Jung believed the hero archetype was meant to do. In his view, the hero wasn't just about external victory. It was about inner evolution, about facing fears, integrating your shadow, confronting what you've avoided, and becoming more whole in the process. In that way, the hero's real opponent is never the villain. It's themselves, their self-doubt, their wounds, their need to please, to perform, to stay small. On TikTok, that plays out in subtle ways. You'll see creators wrestling with imposter syndrome in real time. You'll watch someone break down crying, then post a follow-up 24 hours later. More grounded, more resolved. You'll see someone celebrate a tiny win that would have meant nothing to anyone else, but means everything to them. That's the magic of this platform. It makes small victories visible. And those small victories are what the hero's journey is really made of. It's not the viral moment. It's the dozens of quiet posts before it. It's the 73rd day in a row someone gets up and tries again and films it. It's the vulnerability, the failure, the relapse, the restart. This version of the hero is real, and that's why people believe in them. But there's a shadow side too. Just like Jung warned, any archetype can become a trap if we identify with it too much. Some heroes get stuck trying to always be in progress, always struggling because the audience responds to struggle, always documenting pain because that's what people comment on, and that can lead to burnout, to performative suffering, to pressure that says, if I'm not improving, I'm not valuable. That's where the archetype becomes dangerous. Not because the journey is fake, but because the identity starts to depend on it. Jung believed the hero must eventually return home, not as the same person, but as someone transformed, ready to give back, ready to rest. On TikTok, that part of the story is harder to post. Victory doesn't always go viral. Rest doesn't get as many likes as resilience. Stability is harder to edit into a satisfying arc. But it matters just as much, because the real hero knows when to keep pushing and when to stop performing. They know that healing isn't just linear, that success isn't just public, that becoming whole isn't about chasing applause, it's about listening to yourself. And maybe that's where this archetype needs to evolve. Maybe the new hero isn't just the one who climbs. Maybe it's the one who shows us what it looks like to stand still and still be enough. Because that's the truth. No algorithm can fully reward, but it's the one that resonates the deepest. So the next time you see a day 1 video, a comeback post, a late night reflection from someone you've never met, pay attention. You might be watching the start of someone's hero journey. Or maybe you're being reminded to keep going on your own. Not every truth needs to be serious. Not every insight comes with intensity. Sometimes the most honest moments hit hardest when they're wrapped in a joke. That's the power of the jester, the archetype that speaks truth through laughter. And on TikTok, the jester is thriving. They show up in your feed in the form of chaos, memes, impressions, satire, self-roasts, and stitched videos that take something serious and flip it sideways. They don't just make you laugh, they make you see. Carl Jung understood the jester, not just as comic relief, but as a vital force in the human psyche. He saw the jester as someone who could confront uncomfortable truths, not with confrontation, but with comedy. The jester laughs with us, not at us. They pull back the curtain on our contradictions and invite us to laugh at ourselves before the world does. On TikTok, the jester takes many forms. There's the creator who turns corporate burnout into relatable skits, the one who parodies life coaches with perfect lighting and absolutely zero credentials. The Gen Z meme page that mocks the economy, mental health struggles, and politics, all in one sentence. It's funny, it's fast, And it's sometimes brutal, but it's also necessary. Because the jester doesn't just distract, they release. In a world that's constantly overwhelming, where the news is bad, the pressure is high, and our brains never stop spinning, humor becomes a survival tool, a pressure valve, a coping mechanism disguised as content. And TikTok, with its short-form, rapid-fire, sound-driven format, is the perfect playground for this archetype. You can go from a finance video to someone pretending to be their cat's inner voice in 2 swipes, and somehow that sudden tonal whiplash makes you feel better. The jester helps us process the absurdity of modern life by matching it with absurdity of their own. They meet the moment with sarcasm, parody, chaos, whatever it takes to break the tension. And here's what's interesting. The best jesters aren't trying too hard. They're not performing for applause. They're just expressing what we've all felt, but didn't have the words or the nerve to say out loud. They give voice to collective emotions in the safest way possible, with a laugh. When someone makes a joke about therapy speak, or adulting, or the crushing weight of existential dread, and it lands, it's not just funny, it's validating. It says, you're not the only one feeling this. It turns isolation into recognition. That's the hidden brilliance of the jester. They build community through comedy, not by leading or healing, but by making everyone feel a little more human. And often the ones who joke the loudest are the ones who felt the most. Carl Jung believed humor often comes from the shadow, from the repressed, unspoken parts of ourselves that don't know how to come out any other way. So when someone makes a video about anxiety using a puppet, or turns a depressive episode into a dance trend, or mocks their own overthinking in a 10-second skit, that's not avoidance, that's processing. Humor becomes a language the jester uses to say what they can't or won't say directly. And we get it, because deep down, we know that laughter is layered. Funny isn't always light. TikTok makes that dynamic even more visible. Scroll long enough, and you'll notice a pattern. The funniest creators often post late at night. Their captions hint at sadness. Their pinned videos are a mix of jokes and genuine confessions. It's not a contradiction. It's complexity. The jester, more than any other archetype, shows us that you can laugh and hurt at the same time. That comedy can be just as emotional and just as powerful as any motivational speech. But there's also a risk. When humor becomes the only language we speak, we risk never being taken seriously. We risk hiding in irony so much that we forget how to be sincere. That's the jester's shadow. The impulse to always be on, to turn pain into punchlines until we forget what the pain was. And on TikTok, where performance is currency, that pressure can creep in fast. The funnier you are, the more you're expected to entertain, even if you're not in the mood. Even if you're breaking inside, the healthiest jesters, the ones who last, are the ones who find moments to drop the act. To post a video that says, "I'm not okay today," or to step away for a bit without explanation. To reclaim their humanity in a space that often turns creators into characters. Because the jester isn't just a role, it's a release. And if we overplay it, we forget that we're allowed to feel beyond the punchline. So when you laugh at that late-night TikTok, when you send it to a friend with the message, "You lol." When you double-tap and keep scrolling, remember what just happened. You connected. You let go of something. You joined the human comedy, if only for a few seconds. That's the jester doing what they've always done. Since myths, king's courts, clown masks, and now, phone screens. They remind us that life is ridiculous. And in that ridiculousness, there's relief. There's honesty. And sometimes, if we're lucky, there's healing too. TikTok moves fast. Trends explode and disappear in days. Sounds go viral, then vanish. But underneath the speed and noise, something older is at work. Something ancient. Something Jung would have recognized instantly. It's the collective unconscious, playing out on our screens in real time. Carl Jung believed that beneath our individual thoughts and personalities, there's a shared layer of the mind, a vast invisible network of instincts, symbols, and emotional truths that connect every human being, past and present. The myths we tell, the characters we admire, the fears we bury, the desires we chase. All of it lives in the collective unconscious. And today, it's stitched together through memes, through trends, through the For You page. Think about it. Why do some sounds go viral without context? Why does one short clip feel instantly relatable across language, culture, or geography? It's not just about timing or editing. It's about resonance. Something deep inside us recognizes the pattern, even if we can't name it. A video of someone crying in their car, overwhelmed by life. A parody of a fake smile at work. A skit about being the black sheep of the family. These aren't just moments, they're mirrors. When you see a TikTok and think, that's me, that's the collective unconscious lighting up. Jung would say those moments are symbolic. They carry emotional truth. Not because the video is about you, but because it speaks for you. To a part of you that doesn't usually get to speak. TikTok has become a kind of mass dream. Millions of people projecting emotions, fears, fantasies, all into one endlessly refreshing stream. And just like dreams, it's full of symbols, a sad audio under a funny video, a person dancing in a messy room, a caption that says everything's fine with eyes that say the opposite. We scroll through contradictions, and yet somehow it all makes sense, because the human mind is contradictory, funny and scared, lonely and performing, hopeful and falling apart. The collective unconscious doesn't care about clean categories, it just wants to express. And TikTok is the canvas. We don't just consume content, we contribute to it. We replicate trends without knowing why. We lip sync, copy audios, dress like strangers, not because we're mindless, but because we're wired for shared expression. This is how myths have always worked, not as lectures but as rituals. You hear a story, you retell it. You play a role, and in doing so you reveal something about yourself. The main character trend? That's myth. The rise of healing crystals, moon phases, and divine feminine TikToks? That's myth. The glorification of hustle culture? Also myth. They're all symbolic systems, modern rituals for an audience that's starved for meaning, but allergic to preaching. Jung believed that when we lose connection to the unconscious, we feel aimless. We get anxious, numb, distracted. We chase validation but don't know why we feel empty. Sound familiar? The modern feed is overstimulated but undernourished. We're seeing more but feeling less. Unless we pause. Unless we notice what we're resonating with, who we're watching, why we're laughing or crying or bookmarking something we don't fully understand. That's the gateway. That's where the content stops being a distraction and starts becoming a reflection. TikTok, in its most honest moments, reveals what a generation values, what we long for, what we're afraid of, and what we're trying to remember about ourselves. The hero reminds us that growth is possible. The jester shows us that pain can be shared. The rebel gives us permission to say no. The caregiver helps us slow down. Each persona, each archetype, reflects a different truth. And the collective unconscious holds them all. Carl Jung didn't live to see smartphones or social media, but he understood that technology would never change human nature, only amplify it. And now, as we scroll through symbols, stories, and roles, maybe the best thing we can do is notice which ones stick. Not just what we watch, but what moves us, what we keep replaying, what makes us feel seen. Because in the flood of content, the unconscious is still speaking, still reaching out, still trying to remind us of who we are. And if we learn to listen, really listen, we just might recognize the patterns we've been living all along. We live in a time of constant change. New trends appear by the hour. Attention spans shrink. And it's easy to believe that everything is brand new. But beneath the surface, we're still telling the same stories, still living the same inner dramas, still shaped by the same timeless forces. That's why Carl Jung still matters, not as a relic of old psychology, but as a guide to understanding the chaos we live in right now. He gave us a map, a way to understand the patterns behind the noise. The hero, the jester, the caregiver, the rebel. They're not just symbols from dusty textbooks. They're the roles we step into every time we post, comment, scroll, or hit record. On TikTok, we don't just share content, we share selves, performances, projections, pieces of who we are. and who we're trying to be. And Jung's work helps us ask better questions. Why am I drawn to this kind of content? What part of me is showing up online? What archetype am I living through, and what am I avoiding? The collective unconscious isn't some mystical theory. It's right here, in our feeds, in our trends, in the emotions we recycle through humor, music, and story. We laugh at the same jokes because we feel the same stress. We root for the same creators because we crave growth. We feel connected by memes and audio clips because symbols speak louder than logic. Jung understood that meaning isn't something we download, it's something we remember. And social media, for all its flaws, can sometimes trigger that remembering. But it only works if we pay attention, if we scroll with awareness, if we recognize the patterns before they consume us. Because there's a shadow side to all of this too. Archetypes can empower or trap. We can explore who we are or hide behind a version that gets likes. Jung warned us, when we avoid our inner life, it doesn't disappear. It shows up elsewhere, in our feed, in our reactions, in the roles we play without even knowing it. So maybe the next evolution of content isn't faster edits or better captions. Maybe it's deeper presence. Creators who know what they're channeling. Viewers who reflect on what they're watching. A culture that understands, we're not just watching trends, we're watching ourselves. And when we realize that, we have a chance to use social media differently, more consciously, more creatively, more human. Because behind every viral clip, behind every soundbite, behind every trend is a story. And behind every story is a soul trying to be seen. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who might see themselves in it. Drop a comment. Which archetype do you see in yourself lately? And if you want more content that breaks down modern life with meaning, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. We're just getting started. And trust me, the next chapter is going to be just as real.